Halfway through into number 5, the Blob. The Blob is the amalgam giant pile of black goo that is only seen in the canon ending to Security Breach. The Blob is a massive sized proportion of wire, tentacle, and animatronic parts with possession of many glowing red eyes, because of course it does. The Blob's main head has a mask identical to that of Funtime Freddy, but with black eyes and pinkish red glowing pupils. And then its endoface reveals to actually have metal plates rather than wire tubes. Their body is a large black mass made of wire tentacles like things. It looks like goo, but it's also not goo. It appears to be some larger version of Molten Freddy after Pizzeria Simulator's fire, but it's far more grotesque and mixed with parts of other animatronics and endoskeletons, even some that seemingly weren't at the pizzeria. You can see parts of older animatronics like Circus Baby and the Puppet, which were in FNAF 6's location, but also Chica, Mangle, Bonnie, and several Endo 2s, and likely others that we can't actually see. However, one detail pointed out to me, at least by Matt Patton in his latest theory, was that Baby's eyes aren't glowing red, suggesting that perhaps Baby's soul isn't in this giant amalgamation, and instead it's being controlled by Funtime Freddy. Similar to how the book's tentacle monster was Baby, but this time it would be Freddy in the game world. And at 4, we are Vanny. This one was a video a long time ago, before Security Breach actually came out, and it was a theory about how our player character in FNAF VR was in fact Vanny or Vanessa. And you know what? It ended up being confirmed as true in Security Breach, although I'm pretty sure that that wasn't an original thought when we made that video. I'm pretty sure I based it off of Reddit posts and stuff. But with the interviews or therapy sessions present within the game, however, we do get more information and clues to the story of the previous 3 FNAF games as well. Well, okay, like 2 main series games and then 1 spin-off. Yep. That's correct. These therapy sessions actually confirmed the suspicions that Vanessa was indeed Ness from FNAF AR as well. So with this revelation, we know that in FNAF VR we play as Vanessa, who was probably put there by someone higher up at Fazbear Entertainment because they knew what Afton was planning or something, or maybe it was Afton using his hacking skills through being in the game, something like that. I don't know. But then we got possessed with our mind locked inside Princess Quest. And then we get sent to the special delivery unit to install our virus on various animatronics, probably to try to help William gain a body of his own, but that didn't work. So we were moved to the head security guard for the Pizzaplex, where we could dig up Afton's old body so that we'd be able to put him in that, since it had already contained him before. And thanks to the simple mention of Lewis and her looking up odd things at work with her secret encrypted conversations, we now know the full story of Vanessa since FNAF VR, or since FNAF AR. No, it would be VR AR Security Breach. Halfway through into number 3, limb transplant. William Afton is a tricky fiend. He somehow, no matter what, seems to get away with whatever scheme he's cracked up just because he's lucky, okay? Or maybe he's just that kind of person. Maybe he has like the Infinity Gauntlet, maybe he's just charming, I don't know. But if he does have the Infinity Gauntlet, it would explain a lot, since every game after the introduction of Springtrap, at least where William appears, he has a new design. And it's not a design that can be easily explained away by the suit deteriorating or being torn up. No, like Springtrap to Scraptrap, his head's like doubled in size. And then Scraptrap to Burntrap, it went back to the original design. It was more Springtrap but more deteriorated and burnt. Like the whole time, however, it remained William Afton, as proven in Ultimate Custom Night and in like the Freddy files. It calls him William Afton as well. So like, what's the deal here, Scotty boy? What's going on? How did this happen? My best explanation was artistic license, okay? Scott just ran with the idea that he thought he would make Springtrap scarier, since a lot of people were upset with the original jump scare from FNAF 3, and he didn't want that repeating itself, but in the process, he confused the hell out of us, and honestly, I don't like Scraptrap, it's weird. So in Security Breach, he went back to something closer to the original design, and then swapped out missing limbs from the Scraptrap animatronic for Glamrock Bonnie parts. Plus, the whole artistic license thing explains away the design discrepancies on Scraptrap. But ultimately, and at number 2, Gregory is 40. To be totally honest, the knowledge that this kid has, okay, exceeds even some of my own. This kid is the size of a 4-year-old. He can fit inside Freddy, he can fit inside baby strollers, and various other small areas around the Pizzaplex. He's too small to drive one of the go-karts alone, but he knows how to restart generators, operate a trash compactor, start and drive a van, as well as identify a car battery, connect the jumper cables on a car battery properly, and then use those to fix Freddy's whole recharge every hour issue. I don't even know how to do that properly. I don't know. Like, how the living hell does that make any sense? If he can't drive the go-kart, how can he drive a van? And how do they solve the whole power issue in the true ending? Because Freddy is still going to need to recharge every hour, and they don't have a van this time. So how do Freddy and Gregory make it to the hill without Freddy needing to recharge? Like, how do they solve that issue? This kid knows more words than I do, yet somehow is still the size of a 4-year-old. No, it makes absolutely no sense, and this kid's weird superpower is the thing that makes this game so confusing. It only really makes sense if he's a robot that was supposed to mimic a toddler who's been on for decades and has been learning this whole time. And finally, in number 1, the Aftons. In the best ending, the Princess Quest ending, there are quite a few confusing moments. The most confusing one for me is the idea that Gregory would go get ice cream with Vanessa when she's done trying to kill him. Like, why would you do that? Some people seem to think that it's because they're related or representing the dead Afton kids. And thanks to MatPat, there is actually a little more evidence to this. The ice cream that Vanessa gets while on the hill is very reminiscent of the ice cream cone that lured Elizabeth into Baby's arms. The cone with the tall soft serve on top looks like the cone with the tall soft serve on top that Baby presented to Elizabeth in order to lure her closer and then subsequently kill her. Is that evidence or just a coincidence? You see, I wasn't really sure, but thanks to MatPat, he pointed out that Gregory also has a popsicle. A Freddy popsicle to be exact. You know, like those SpongeBob ones that never look right, but it's Freddy Fazbear, not SpongeBob. And the lighting makes it look very yellow in color, as if it was a reference to a certain yellow bear that could have had something to do with the crying child's death. If this was truly meant to be Crying Child, this could be a good way of indicating it. But not only is it this good, it gets better. Crying Child, or I guess Gregory, has taken a bite out of the head of the popsicle. Could also be a reference to how he met his unfortunate fate. And that, combined with the other ice cream, I feel like that's pretty good. Remnant is a key object in the Five Nights at Freddy series. Remnant is the term for a soul that possesses inanimate objects, making it the reason behind the paranormal occurrences in the series. It is believed that William Afton started his killings as a way to obtain Remnant in order to gain immortality, although this is impossible since William only discovered Remnant after the original 5 animatronics got possessed. So he was already killing before he found out about Remnant. But Remnant also appears as a collectible in FNAF AR Special Delivery. But, with everything we've come to learn about this series, is it possible that what we know is a lie? That's what we're exploring today. Let's do it. According to police reports that saw the substance in the FNAF books, it's appeared to be a bubbling liquid mercury. The appearance of this glowing silvery liquid is similar to Remnant depicted in the novel trilogy, particularly in the fourth closet, which makes sense given that Remnant, as we know, is a combination of human soul and metal, which is created when a soul possesses a metal-based object like an animatronic endoskeleton. In the Fazbear Frights books, where most of this lore comes from, its powers are expanded upon. Remnant can be used to make already living beings even more powerful through the power of positive memories. Kind of like how everyone gets defeated by the power of love in The Flash. The primary scientist studying Remnant is Dr. Talbert, a friend of Phineas Taggart who studied its negative counterpart, Agony, which now means that the agony that possesses animatronics and the human soul are two different things, but seemingly both of which had to come from someone who died. Talbert studied Remnant because his daughter Renelle was sick when she was younger and he wanted to hold on to the good memories of her in case he lost her. Remnant could also be isolated and put into a certain object, so Talbert created a pendant made from Remnant metal as a gift for Renelle. Keep in mind that this Remnant is also just a form of metal. It's kind of like a metal compound, like Damascus steel, but instead of a lot of layers of steel, it's metal and souls melted down, and then that is liquid Remnant, but then as a solid, I guess you could say it's a Remnant nugget. It's unclear how Dr. Talbert got his hands on such a large amount of Remnant, but he had a steady supply that somehow was consistently delivered to his house. This also got the attention of an evil entity named Eleanor, who was introduced, or I guess created in the story, to be beautiful from 1:35 AM, the second Fazbear Frights book. Her goal was to obtain Remnant for herself to become even more powerful, so that she could spread pain and suffering across the world using the power of positive vibes. And at 10, Client 46. The mystery of FNAF security breaches Client 46 is one that still plagues us even after the game has been torn to shreds. There's no mention of a name or any other names associated with Client 46, and whoever it is doesn't even speak. The client does appear to be younger, given the tonal shift between the therapists when they're talking to Vanessa and then talking to 46, which could be the reason that the tapes with Vanessa were included, to show that each therapist approaches 46 with a softer, kinder touch. But we know that Client 46 is most likely also a male. Given that therapist 4 asks 46 what they like to do, and the first thing they talk about is sports. When being asked about encrypted communications which seem manipulative in nature, the therapist also says, quote, well, the texts say it looked to them like it was an attempt to manipulate you or maybe to lure you somewhere. This is the same language used when educating kids about online safety and predators. So, is this Gregory? Personally, to me, it seems like it, but if you want more of a breakdown on this, check out the Is Gregory Client 46 theory in the iCard. And at 9, security, level 9. Now, the highest security level that you can actually get access to is level 8. This just requires you to do every one of the security room minigames. However, with level 8 being the highest one that you can actually achieve, it begs the question, why are there doors with security level 10? And while that's a question for another day, my question this time around is also, why are there no security level 9 doors? Throughout the entire Pizzaplex, there are a selection of doors that we are unable to access, either because they're out of service or because they require level 10 security clearance. However, there are no doors that require level 9 security. Why is this? The simple answer is because 10 is more secure, both in an in-universe perspective as well as a gameplay standpoint. Because maybe you can somehow accidentally glitch your way to level 9 clearance. But the theory could also be that it's because in reality there is something incredibly sinister going on behind those level 10 doors. Especially if it's bad enough to hide behind 2 door levels up from your highest clearance and not just 1. And at 8, inspiration. Now, while the Pizzaplex itself may not be real, are there actually elements of this that could be? Well, actually, yes. It's been confirmed that most of the locations and structures in the Freddy Fazbear's Mega Pizzaplex were actually based on places that the developers spent their childhood in, which would mean each of these locations draws inspiration from a real place, but it's still unrealistic that a franchise like Fazbear's, having been made famous for having kids constantly go missing, would be able to end up building a whole mall complex. But also this makes me wonder, is this the plan in real life? I mean, we don't know what this game's year is supposed to be. Like, I originally assumed it was 2022 because of the FNAF AR emails, but this could also be as late as like 2037 or something, thanks to FNAF 6 and the like. But could the person taking over after Scott actually be planning a real location? Probably not. I don't think that Scott would appreciate that or let it happen, but maybe Chuck E. Cheese needs some healthy competition and not seemingly a monopoly on the whole animatronic pizzeria biz. And at 7, Dave. Back in the glory days, before we knew who William Afton was, we had many names for the one known as the Purple Guy. None of them were canon, but some people believed that they were. And while they were all confirmed as fake once the official name of William Afton was revealed in the Silver Eyes as well as sister location, maybe one or more of them is actually real. Yeah, I remember calling the Purple Guy Dave before the Silver Eyes came out, but once the Silver Eyes canonized Dave Miller as a fake name, we've kept our eyes out for anyone using a similar alias. Well, lo and behold, it took a couple years, but in Security Breach you were able to find duffel bags that contain messages that hold some form of lore, like the one about the night terrors that I mentioned in another list. Even before that one, in the customer service area where you upgrade your complimentary ticket, you can find a bag that says customer complaint, you should fire Dave, he sucks. It's simply called Hi Dave, but suggests that William maybe still has an influence over this place. You know, I wouldn't put it past him. And at 6, save spots. The idea that there are various save spots around the map that allow you to save your progress is a good idea. However, this has a whole new implication for like the real life reasons these spots are around the Pizzaplex. Now, if you saved in a simple menu screen, it would be one thing, okay? The whole saving thing would just become a game feature and not canon. However, the inclusion of these save stations means that the saving is canon in the real world of the game. But how? Well, above each save point is a sign that says save your spot, which while yes refers to your spot in the game, it can also refer to something else in the Pizzaplex, and it really has to. They're probably just for making sure that you don't miss out on the various attractions. However, the real confusing part is that those are on all night, but then as soon as the Pizzaplex opens at 6 AM, they all of a sudden stop working. Why? Why are they suddenly just not working when they'd actually be needed? It makes no sense to me. Like, why keep them on all night when nobody's supposed to be in the Pizzaplex? There's something sus going on here, and it's not just Gregory venting. However, what we currently know about Remnant and Agony tells us that to destroy it properly, we need to burn it. Hence why there have really been so many fires in this series. FNAF 3, 6, and 9 all end with something or someone getting set on fire. FNAF 3's fire was all about dealing with Springtrap, and FNAF 6 was about putting everyone who knew about the atrocities that occurred at Freddy's to rest, and sending William to hell. And then, in FNAF 9, we burn Trap multiple times to get him to stop possessing Freddy, and to again try to kill him. Because Gregory is not above killing. That's a topic for another day. And this is because Henry learned that the only way to destroy Remnant and put these beings to rest was through fire. But
But is that really how we deal with these animatronics and people? Because like, while 9 out of 10 doctors recommend Crest Pro Health toothpaste, 3 out of 3 FNAF fires haven't worked. We have been told that fire is the only thing that is hot enough to burn off Remnant and to actually destroy it, aside from the fact that matter cannot be created nor destroyed, but it's also been described as a liquid metal. Liquid metal is a hell of a lot hotter than your typical run-of-the-mill gasoline fire, trust me, okay? I have the expertise in this department, so in essence, every single animatronic who is supposed to be set free by a cleansing fire hasn't been so far. The only time we've seen souls actually be put to rest is in FNAF 3's Happiest Day minigame, which involved no fire and just putting the souls to rest by giving them what they wanted, a birthday party. But how could that be possible? Like, Dr. Talbert wouldn't lie to us. He's researching so his little girl wouldn't die, right? Well, this is where this theory starts to blow your mind. I don't think that Dr. Talbert, as described in the FNAF Fazbear Frights books, is a real person. Or rather, I don't think that Dr. Talbert is truly his name. Let's think about it. Who else do we know with a daughter in a compromising position who would have an endless flow of remnant from an undisclosed source and a close personal friend working as his opposite? That's right, ladies and gentlemen, William frickin' Afton. William Afton, my friends, is the true identity of Dr. Talbert. William is no stranger to using aliases either. Remember Dave Miller from the Silver Eyes? Exactly. And this connection only gets stronger the more you look at it. See, Talbert's daughter ends up being impersonated by Eleanor, who in the Fazbear Frights books is, like, described to be Baby. She's described as basically Baby, just with a longer neck. So both daughters in this scenario also end up becoming Baby at some point. Renelle through being impersonated, and Elizabeth when she possessed Baby through, you guessed it, Remnant. And Talbert and Eleanor are attacked by the Stitch Wraith. What does that relate to? Perhaps the son, who is part animatronic that's been working to undo his father's plans? Michael? Have we seen the animatronics in the games? No, so how can we take any of what's being said in the Fazbear Frights epilogues as fact? The baby blob turned out to be real, but everything else could simply be a metaphor.
And a 4 arcade conspiracy. The arcade conspiracy gets its name from one of the duffel bags that you can find where we learn something else has been going on here, and I'm gonna keep making that joke until I can't anymore. Quote from this arcade conspiracy note: "They are working together, the arcades. They are hiding something. The glitches. Glitch them all at the same time. Then the princess will recognize me. She's testing me. I am not yet worthy. The others are protecting it. Let me stay. I'm so close. Just one more night. Please, I can save the princess." Now it's clear that it seems to be referring to the Princess Quest games, however it doesn't really seem like we have to glitch the Princess Quest games in order to win. We just have to beat them in order from 1 to 3 and then boom, we save Vanny. So what could this mean? Well, there are 3 other arcade machines that seem to be having mysterious glitches as well. The Balloon Boy World game that you can find in the theater, Chica's Feeding Frenzy, which won't turn off even when unplugged, that you can find in the bakery, and Monty Golf A Arcade that according to its duffel bag shouldn't be in the mini golf area, but is. However, while you can play both Balloon Boy World and the Monty Golf game, Chica's Feeding Frenzy isn't an arcade cabinet. You can only access it by using a mod that lets you cheat it from the main menu, so I feel like it was an intentional feature that was left on the cutting room floor. Getting close to the end, and at number 3, Glam Rock Freddy is Henry. Now the idea that Freddy is possessed is a theory that's been floating around for a while, and some assume that the one possessing him is Michael, which does make sense. However, there are also hints that this isn't the case at all, and that it's instead Henry possessing Freddy. Do I think that this is the case? No, but it's still fun to talk about. Starting off with the fire he sets on the rooftop ending if you leave through the prize counter. This ending has Freddy set the prize counter on fire as you two escape to the roof. Now, we know that out of the 3 fires in this series, Henry was the one who set the first 2. He was the one who set the FNAF 6 pizzeria on fire, and the FNAF 3 fire was also most likely set by Henry. Since in Ultimate Custom Night, Orville Elephant claims, quote, "He tried to release you, he tried to release us," in which us is most likely a reference to the FNAF 3 fire, since this is the one where he tried to release the one you should not have killed, and the one you should not have killed is talking through Orville. So Freddy's first idea to set fire to this place may not be a coincidence. He also seems extremely eager to do so. There's also the idea that Henry was in the FNAF 6 pizzeria when it burned down, since he said that he was nearby. I don't know, it could be possible, and if it was, what a twist. But ultimately, in at number 2, Vengeful Child. And while yes, we made a whole video about this literally yesterday, I wanted to make sure that everyone knows that the whole crying child is the vengeful spirit thing solves a lot more problems than it causes. Because the only thing you really have to do to have this theory be the case is believe that crying child would blame his father for his death. And considering how he most likely saw Elizabeth get scooped, it's probably the case. At that point, he would note that the robots that William, his father, made are meant to kill, and therefore wouldn't blame Michael for figuring that an animatronic wouldn't be able to kill him. Additionally, it explains the nightmares in Ultimate Custom Night, the fact that Cassidy was released in FNAF 3, and the he pronouns used for the one you should not have killed, and doesn't really raise any questions other than would he blame William. The only time we've seen someone possess something while they've still been alive, and then also possessed multiple things, was Henry after the loss of his daughter, which, you know what, in my mind would cause a lot more agony than a child being chased by nightmare versions of robots while you're in a coma in the hospital, okay? Losing a child is worse than a nightmare. Also, if you're in the hospital, the only thing that you're going to possess is like the only thing around, which is your dad, okay? It's the simplest explanation. It literally explains everything. I don't know why people are so apprehensive about this theory. Like, yeah, you can believe that William didn't kill Crying Child, but what's important here isn't what you believe, it's what Crying Child himself would believe. After all, since the vengeful spirit is talking through the animatronics in Ultimate Custom Night, as we learned from the mediocre melody lines, because the animatronic lines are basically just what the one you should not have killed is saying, but in the animatronic voice. So, by that logic, the one you should not have killed basically named themselves. Not basically, they did name themselves. So all that matters is if Crying Child would blame dear old dad, and considering how he probably saw Elizabeth get scooped, I'm much more comfortable thinking that, instead of thinking that Cassidy wasn't released in the Happiest Day minigame despite what is clearly is the intended end for those spirits, and then somehow switching from Golden Freddy to William or even possessing both, and then having two souls inside of Golden Freddy. Like, it's one logical assumption compared to multiple assumptions. The logbook people also cite as evidence for Cassidy actually basically proves the whole Cassidy thing wrong, since Cassidy shows up on a page talking about your happiest day, being given cake by the puppet, so I'm pretty sure that is Scott solidifying the whole she was released in the Happiest Day minigame thing, since this book would have taken place before FNAF 3. Like hell, maybe it even took place during FNAF 3 just before she's released, hence why the two spirits could be talking. And finally, in number 1, false conviction. This is actually the theory that inspired this list, and it comes from one of you. On our full timeline video, which in my opinion is still underappreciated, incredibly underappreciated really, Shauna S commented, quick little theory. You know how in the first game it says the killer was convicted for murders of the missing children? If that is the case, I think that Henry was falsely convicted, but since they couldn't find the bodies, he got 25 to 30 years and got out of prison when Fazbear Frights happened. It explains to me why he wasn't involved in the first few games. I will say I've heard a lot of different information concerning the missing children's incident, so my theory may be wrong, just wanted to put that out there. And then they also gave me permission to use this in the video. And honestly, Henry being falsely imprisoned for the missing children's incident explains a lot. Considering how there were no bodies, there wouldn't really be much forensic evidence, so the case against anyone in this case would rely on circumstantial evidence to get a conviction. But when it's the death of multiple kids, they're definitely going to want to explore every avenue and not let this guy off if there is even the slightest chance. So the case would have been dragged on for a while, until 1993 potentially, when the Fazbear Frights location closed with William still inside. 30 years is definitely a lot of time for new evidence to come to light, and maybe Henry even could have gotten out earlier than the 30 years if he was exonerated by new evidence. But he didn't act until William was free because he thought that the situation was dealt with. While the whole he was convicted thing could be explained away by Scott not thinking that there would be another game, let alone 8 more, he probably could have wanted the killer story to end with the first game just in case. But now, since we know that William wasn't convicted, this could be a really great explanation that explains why nothing happened with Henry until FNAF 3. So, incredible job, Shauna. Amazing work. I don't know if that means much coming from me, but good job.
And Rennell might not even be meant to represent Elizabeth. It could be meant to represent Crying Child, making Eleanor Elizabeth and the Stitch Wraith Michael, and honestly, that sounds like a much more plausible solution than what's being described in these books, especially with the revelation that Gregory could, again, be a rebuilt Crying Child robot, because all these experiments with Remnant worked. If this was truly describing William and Crying Child and Michael and Elizabeth, this would make perfect sense with the story. This is like a recap of what's been going on with FNAF. FNAF 4, Crying Child dies. So William promises that he will put him back together by finding Remnant after he kills the 5 missing children, and then disassembling them in FNAF 3's minigames when he releases the spirits and then gets trapped in the Springlock suit. But then we also learn in the original novel trilogy that the Remnant from the original 5 animatronics was injected into the Funtime animatronics. So while the Funtime animatronics have the souls of the 5 missing children all combined into one, they also are serving as an experiment for how he can use it to bring back his son. And he even injects Eleanor, who was impersonating Renelle, with the Remnant, just as he recreates Crying Child into Gregory. So here's how I see it. William as Talbot through, I'm guessing, just journals that Henry just somehow stumbled onto were made to spread the rumor of Remnant needing to burn, to be destroyed, so that if Henry ever tried to stop William, he wouldn't be able to. That's why William knows he'll always come back. He's rigged the game, and in doing so, ensured the survival of himself, his daughter, and his 2 sons. Renelle is a representation of Crying Child, having been bitten at his birthday party in 1983 that William is trying to save. Eleanor is the power-hungry daughter Elizabeth that only wants the Remnant for herself, even willing to abandon her father to die to live another day, as we see with the Afton amalgamation, or even kill her father, as we potentially see at the end of the true FNAF Security Breach ending. And the Stitch Wraith is Michael, at first misunderstood, killing his creator like Michael tried in the FNAF 3 and 6 Fire, but in reality trying to right the wrongs of his father before him and bring peace to his family. And as we see in Security Breach, they accomplished their goals. Gregory, representing Crying Child, is back. He and Freddy, representing Michael, stopped William, and Vanny, Elizabeth, gets to fight another day.
The concept of Burn Trap has been annoying me since I first learned of his existence, since it seemingly exists separate from Glitch Trap. Up until this point, we were running under the assumption that William's body finally aided in the FNAF 6 fire, but that his soul ended up latching onto a hard drive that got scanned into Help Wanted, which is how Glitch Trap was born, because William was able to use the agony from the fire to keep on living and finally become a spirit, something like that. But with some of William's body still being in this suit, what the hell is going on here? That's what we're exploring and aim to answer today. And you know what? I think I did. The main issue I've been having is whether William is dead or alive. And there are a couple different things to consider here. Firstly, he is seemingly in a new endoskeleton, which would indicate that he's dead and Glitch Trap's consciousness is just being transferred into Burn Trap spot via the recharge station. But his head is clearly visible. Like, you can see his skull and his actual human jaw, meaning that he could still be holding on to this world via that head, especially given who we're talking about here. The most stubborn to ever grace our screens. This also can't be innuendo, and just the model that they're using for the others since it was easier and they could release the game faster. This seems to be indicated by the way that Burn Trap walks. If this was a new endoskeleton, why would he be shambling like a zombie? But the claws and repaired sections to the actual endo also seem to indicate that this is also a new endo and possibly even Glamrock Bonnies. So there's a whole lot of wrong going on here. All the points are intersecting and it's not fun. Originally, I was against the whole Glamrock Bonnie endoskeleton thing because, well, frankly, the body in the suit kind of disproved it for me, but I think I might have found a way to make it work. However, looking at the model, I'm still not 100% sure. If this was the Glamrock Bonnie endo, it would need to have broader shoulders and actually be shorter. Like, even scaling the Glamrock endo so that they're the same height, the endos, when posed the same and lined up, just they don't match. There are similarities, of course, between the two designs, but there aren't enough similarities where I can call this even really above 50%. There's also the issue of the muscles being woven throughout the body, or maybe those are nerve fibers. If it was just the head, I'd understand, since they could have just pulled the old endo head and put it onto the new body. Since all the parts were intertwined, Afton's head would have come with it. But with the muscles throughout the rest of the endo, that's way too intricate to actually have been placed there. And they would only be there and not dangling if it had been stuck there after being shoved full of machine parts. I don't think that they're taking super glue to glue these fibers back onto a new endoskeleton. If Afton was going to transfer his head to a new endo, it wouldn't come with the rest of his body bits. It wouldn't. That's not how it works. Which would mean this would have to be Springtrap's endoskeleton, which also explains why it's so run down, why he shambles, and why he hardly has any casing. And Springtrap's design also seems to change from game to game. From FNAF 3 to FNAF 6, he was totally different, so him changing again in Security Breach seems like no big deal in comparison. It's basically normal for him to get a newer and seemingly scarier attempt at his design with a new game. And at least this has an understandable progression from the last game and even from FNAF 3, since it's more run down and not just a bigger head like Scraptrap. It's like he sold his soul for a bigger head and then the demon kind of made a joke out of it. The most reasonable assumption that I have for what happened though was that he was given the hands of Glamrock Bonnie since it has the claws, and just he wasn't given the entire endoskeleton. But then again, his arms have the bits of muscle and nerve fibers as well, which means that it would have to have been his old one, it would have to have been there from the start, it would have to be the arm of the old endoskeleton, which is a whole other conundrum because Scraptrap was missing an arm and Springtrap didn't have any casing on his foot, yet here we are. I just think that we have to kind of leave this one up to artistic license and accept that it's meant to be the same endoskeleton, just with a replacement part or two from Glamrock Bonnie instead of like the entire endoskeleton. It makes sense, honestly, and it's really the only reasonable explanation that we have. Unless the colors are wrong on the images that I was looking at and the bits on the hands are just meant to be melted casing, which is possible, but I doubt it. As for if he's wanted dead or alive, I think this version of Afton is actually finally dead. And honestly, I'm happy about that because it means that even if he's still here, we can kill him off for good. This is the most logical conclusion to me because, well, other than him basically being only a head, this guy has had multiple backslides of, oh, I'm dead, just kidding. And this time around, while we instantly predicted that he had indeed survived, I think that Scott is finally flipping the narrative on us. We predicted it, so it's not gonna happen. Afton is no longer connected to his body, as we can clearly see from the formation of Glitchtrap. And Glitchtrap being created would only be possible if Afton died, since the one you should not have killed was dead set on keeping him breathing. But Burntrap, this guy doesn't even have lungs anymore. So yeah, this version of Afton's body is dead, but his consciousness lives on. Like how there's like the conspiracy that Walt Disney froze his head. Yeah, well, that's kind of what they did with Glitchtrap. And then that programming was probably uploaded into his old host, or I guess vessel, since I've been rewatching Supernatural. Basically, this guy would be impossible if he wasn't just Afton's code loaded onto an endoskeleton. Plus, the eyes are clearly robotic this time around with purple pupils, rather than the previous iterations that had seemingly real eyes, Afton's actual eyes, since it was in suit mode after he got snapped. And opening his head in those like secret FNAF 3 screens revealed that it was actually like his eyes because they were seemingly in the same place. So, all in all, here's the story of Burntrap as far as I can tell. During the FNAF 6 fire, Afton passes out. Not dead, but still somehow alive thanks to the one you should not have killed, Crying Child. This leads to the events of Ultimate Custom Night that sees Afton stuck in his own mind trying to escape so that his spirit can move on. But Crying Child, represented by a golden bear like the one who crushed his skull, tries to keep him stuck, until eventually he throws everything that he has at him. 50-20 mode. After being so weakened by the fire, William survives this attack on his mind, and Crying Child's spirit is set free, hence the spasming bear at the end of that mode. That's him burning as the fire sets his soul free. William's soul then latches onto the nearest thing that it can find, one of the hard drives in the storage room that the Scraptrap animatronic was being kept in. One that gets scanned to create the Freddy Fazbear virtual experience as the company tries to rebuild its reputation. Then, not wanting to waste the land that was bought for their company, Fazbear Entertainment begins building a new pizzaplex on top of their old location. Whether this is due to Glitchtrap possessing someone higher up at the company through the game or someone just wanting to save money is up in the air, but the remains of the FNAF 6 simulated pizzeria are buried under the pizzaplex's foundation. That's when Vanessa comes along, our player character from Help Wanted, who reassembles the 16 cassette tapes in an effort to destroy Afton once and for all, but ultimately fails. When our mind is distracted by following Tape Girl's instructions, William locks us in our mind and in the Princess Quest minigame that would later get ported to an arcade cabinet for insurance purposes. And by insurance, I mean like insurance on Vanessa so that she wouldn't easily be able to escape. As Vanny, William then uses the animatronics to dig out his body and put his old endoskeleton in a recharge station so that when he's able to transfer himself back into it, he'll be able to move. After all, at this point, he's not a spirit, but simply coding, which means that in another game, if he is still alive, we'll actually be able to kill him off. He also gives his old suit some upgrades in the form of Glamrock Bonnie's hands and right foot. Why would he not go with a new, more powerful endo, you ask? Because it's William and his Spring Bonnie suit. It's his body in there. Of course he'd want it back. He's been that way for like at least 40 years at this point. It's all he knows. Then, as Gregory and Freddy jump down into the pit, William can sense it. Either because he's an animatronic, because one or both of them are meant to be his kids, or something else, he activates his body even though it's not fully charged and tries to take over Freddy. He's not fully charged, hence the shambling, which Gregory ends up preventing with fire, which has surely traumatized Afton by now, and considering how he's only code, this time fire would actually finish the job. Eventually, the place actually catches on fire and Freddy and Gregory escape, but the blob grabs hold of William. Whether it was to save him or seal his fate is unknown, but this almost certainly isn't the end of William Afton's story.